The early 90s was a dope time for Mega Man. With the last 4 mainline games receiving tons of praise, Capcom peeped that they were sitting on something special. Then everything changed once the Super Nintendo hit the world. Capcom wasn't gonna miss a chance to bring their blue hero to this new console, but they also didn't want to just slap the classic Mega Man series on it. Instead, they decided to make a spin-off that would upgrade everything about the franchise, not just mechanically, but narratively too. Folks, welcome back to my mini-series covering the history and lore of every single Mega Man. Last time we covered classic Mega Man, but now we're moving forward a whole century to talk about his successor. This is the story of the robot with infinite potential, a Reploid desperately searching for peace in a world of violence. This is the story of Mega Man X. Mega Man X, or Rockman X as he's known in Japan, was created by the same team that worked on the classic Mega Man series. According to Mega Man and Mega Man X, the official complete works, Keiji Inafune and the team began coming up with ideas once they entered the Super Nintendo era of consoles. Inafune being one of the big players in the original Mega Man team. I talked about him more in my last video if you want to educate yourself on his story. They wanted to make something new and different, but were aware they couldn't just change the Mega Man formula. This made for an arduous brainstorming process, and it didn't help that Inafune and his protege, Hayato Kaji, switched roles. In previous Mega Man titles, Inafune focused on the main characters while Kaji worked on supporting characters. This time Kaji ended up designing the protagonist, Mega Man X. In the complete works, he commented on how difficult it was partially because they had way more color to work with compared to the past, which is understandable. Classic Mega Man was almost all blue just to save data. Now with the introduction of the Super Nintendo's better hardware, these guys had options. And looking at the design now, I think Kaji killed it. I can't imagine being a kid from 1993 watching the debut of a character like this, knowing he came from a series that looked like this. On the flip side, Inafune designed the supporting character, Zero. He wouldn't start as playable, but Inafune really wanted him to be. He envisioned him as the new hardcore Mega Man, hence the long hair, abundant use of red, and his more aggressive attitude compared to X. He believed that taking too much inspiration from classic Mega Man would give a nice guy impression, and that's not what they were trying to go for. But funny enough, Inafune did not mention all that when he submitted the designs for X and Zero to his boss. He presented X as the new Mega Man, and to avoid any critical analysis, he simply introduced Zero as the sub-character. Makes you wonder what the series would have been like if Zero was the protagonist. The hardcore vibe remained the theme as Mega Man X was fleshed out. The setting, which we'll get into once we cover the lore, was made to be a lot darker and more tense, and the villain, Sigma, was designed to be way more of a threat than Wily. While iconic, Inafune believed that the Mad Doctor had a side about him that you couldn't really hate. And I get that. In the last video I mentioned how Wily kind of felt like a cartoon villain, and that added some charm to him, sure, but because of it, I was never really worried about his schemes. I knew the majority of his plans would fail and lead to him groveling for his life. Sigma, on the other hand, was created to be an absolute evil, and has a little more complexity to his backstory. Just by looking at their design side by side, you can see the difference in aura. Gameplay-wise, a ton of new features were added to take advantage of the Super Nintendo's power. Since RPGs were popping off during the time, they added armor upgrades to simulate the feel of leveling up and getting stronger. Mounts were introduced to add a certain flair of luxury to the game. And of course, the graphics fucking digivolved, giving us a game that still looks good today. Also, quick tangent. There was this album that came out for X1 that featured a bunch of different background music for the stages. And in it, they left a developer diary giving readers an idea of how they felt while creating the game. It's mad funny, so I highly recommend you read it yourself. Once again, shout out to Shmupulations for the translation. But here is one entry that caught my eye, and I want to share with y'all. I have no ideas. I can't think of a single thing. Nothing. The programmers are getting angry, the designers are getting restless. I'm in hell. This is surely hell. How did I get into this mess? My anger is rising. God damn it all. I've got to take it out on something. Ouch! Well, I guess I should head home now. Wait a second. The wall. Kicking the wall. Yes! This could be just the new action I've been looking for Rockman X. When you get pissed, you can just kick the wall over and over. This is a revolutionary new system. I'm a genius! And believe it or not, that little entry right there may be the origins of wall dashing. It hasn't been confirmed, but it hasn't not been confirmed, so... Anyway, after a ton of work, Mega Man X was released in 1993 and received stellar reviews. It was praised as a successful milestone in transitioning Mega Man from the NES to the Super Nintendo. And though it didn't span into a series with as many games as its predecessor, it presents a story that is way more focused. This brings us to the fun part of the video, the lore. And I don't even have to give a disclaimer here. This story truly is a lot more streamlined than the classic one. There's actual continuity, more character depth, and the stakes feel real as fuck. So without much further ado, let's get into the surprisingly dark tale of Mega Man X. So, contrary to what I thought back when I was a kid, X actually isn't an older Mega Man. In fact, he's more like a much younger brother. See, Dr. Thomas Light, the creator of Mega Man, had this ambitious yet insane goal of designing robots capable of independent thought. He got close with the likes of the Blue Bomber, Roll, Proto Man, and other robots, but their AI was never sophisticated enough to make them truly self-aware. Light couldn't settle with that. He was either going to create robo-humans or die trying. Eventually, sometime in 20XCX, after the events of the classic Mega Man timeline, he does it. He creates his magnum opus, Mega Man X, the first robot able to feel, think, and make his own decisions. However, Light is worried about how a robot like him will affect the outside world. Is the populace ready for a sentient artificial being? What if he breaks the rule of robotics and harms a human? He estimates that it will take 30 years to confirm X's reliability, but Light knows he won't live that long. So he seals his creation in a capsule meant to test his internal systems until he's ready for the world. He dies soon after, and goes down in history as the father of robotics. Elsewhere, Light's scientific rival, Dr. Albert Wily, is adding the final touches to his two final projects. The first is Zero, a robot described to be stronger than Mega Man and Bass, at least according to Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters. The second is the Maverick virus. Unfortunately for the Doctor, it becomes apparent that Zero suffers from a flaw in his cognitive functions, which makes him violent and disobedient. On top of that, death ain't too far away from this guy either, so he's forced to seal both Zero and his unfinished Maverick virus before his passing. However, we'll soon find out that true genius never dies. Fast forward to the next century, and we're now in 21XCX. Enter Dr. Kane, a scientist searching for fossil records to verify his findings on Mesozoic plant life. But after more than a month of excavating, he comes up empty. So he moves his dig site. But then on April 10th, 21XCX, he finds something way cooler than some fossils: the buried remains of Light's lab. Before long, he comes across the scientist's notes. He immediately peeps that Light was cooking up something huge in here, something that would change the world's perception of robotics. So with intrigue fueling him, he drops his fossil search to study these notes. This leads him to the capsule Light left here long ago. Once he verifies that all the diags have been run, he opens it and meets X for the first time. And then, X kills him because he deems him as inefficient, then he enslaves the human race and takes over the world. I'm kidding. But imagine though, that would have been the illest setup for Zero to become the protagonist, if I'm being honest. But for real, X meets Kane, and from jump, Kane realizes this is not your average robot. In his diary, he explains that X feels more like a man, which goes to show how much of a genius Light was. Even a whole century into the future, his work is still ahead of its time. The two spend months together, then using Light's notes and X as a base, he designs a new generation of robots they call Reploids, or Reploids, as they're known in Japan. They begin coexisting with the humans, and to Kane's surprise, they acclimate well to society. The Reploids are chill and helpful, and the humans love them. But of course, this peace doesn't last for long, cause, you know, the plot's gotta plot. Remember Zero? Well, the Maverick virus that was sealed with him has been leaking out of his capsule. It infects a couple of Reploids and causes them to act out. Along with that, when Kane was developing these guys, his impatient ass was nowhere near as cautious as Light. So some of them were born with defects, and they begin acting out too. Society starts calling these deviants Mavericks, or irregulars in Japan. So to keep the people safe, a police force of Reploids is formed to hunt down the Mavericks. They call them the Maverick Hunters. They're separated into different units depending on their specialty, with the 17th Elite Unit comprised of some of the strongest hunters in the force. Kane designates his greatest creation, Sigma, to lead this unit, along with the hunters as a whole. Now, while all this is happening, X is sort of having an early life crisis. He questions his place in the world and continues to wonder what Light's big plan for him is. Kane lets him rock though, confident that he'll figure things out on his own. Plus, he has bigger problems to worry about. Zero has finally woken up from his slumber, and he still suffers from wanting nothing but the smoke. The hunters classify him as Maverick and attempt to hunt him down, but the first unit sent gets bodied. So Sigma personally goes after him. And you'd think that because he's based on X's top tier design, the commander would mop the floor with this guy. But don't sleep on the certified hater that is Wily. Though he wasn't as successful as Light, he was still respected as a genius. On top of that, let's not forget that this is his magnum opus. So Sigma gets his shit rocked, loses his whole arm in the process. Zero even laughs at the dude while trying to rip his head off. But for some reason, a W appears in his head, causing him immense pain. Sigma uses the chance to get one good lick in, shattering the crystal on the Red Maverick's forehead. With them down, the Hunter Commander returns his unconscious body to Kane for repairs. But unbeknownst to him, this skirmish caused him and Zero to catch the Maverick virus. Eventually, Zero wakes up from his repairs, with no memory of what happened. He's also a lot more docile. It looks like the Maverick virus altered his personality and fixed his lust for the hands. According to this official character relationship chart that was drafted between Mega Man 5 and X1's development, the reasoning for this is because Zero was already the baddest robot of all time, so it turned him good instead. He decides to join the Maverick Hunters, and quickly rises to Special A class thanks to his exceptional skill. Though he's more calm now, he ain't afraid to catch a body if he has to. X eventually joins the Hunters as well, equipped with the upgraded Mega Buster developed by Light, the X-Buster. But unlike Zero, his disdain for violence makes him more hesitant on the battlefield. This keeps him at the B-class level, even though he's capable of so much more. With these new recruits, the Hunters continue their battle against Maverick Reploids and Mechanaloids, the latter being robots with subhuman intelligence. Think of them as less advanced Reploids with specific tasks they are dedicated to. They're usually pretty large too. As the Maverick attacks continue, the Maverick virus assimilates with Sigma's advanced systems. It mutates within him, earning it the new name the Sigma virus. Then eventually, Dr. Kane's worst fear comes true. The Hunter Commander goes Maverick. He concludes that humans are holding them back from evolution. Then after recruiting a bunch of his old comrades from the Hunters, he leads an anti-human rebellion against society, thus beginning the infamous Maverick Wars, and bringing us to the first game in this timeline, Mega Man X1. So already, this story is leagues above classic Mega Man. The tension, the stakes. Inafune wanted this to be hardcore, and they fucking did that shit. I like how X and Zero are sort of the last physical remnants of Light and Wily, but unlike their creators, they work as a team. I also love how Mega Man went from being a character who was so sure of doing what was right, to now being someone confused about his place in life. It makes him way more interesting than his 20xcx counterpart, with his conscience of justice circuitry or whatever, and we just got to the first game. Anyway, with Sigma gone, Zero is forced to take command of the remaining Hunters, which is pretty much just X. Then they split up to confront the Maverick army. X arrives on the highway and clears out a bunch of enemies as this fucking banger plays in the background. But he's stopped by a Maverick named Vile. This guy also used to be part of the Hunters, and like Zero, he was Special A class. However, he also had a malfunction in his brain that made him disobedient. He ended up going Maverick, and during the rebellion, he joined Sigma's side almost purely because he really does not fuck with X. Like, he despises the guy. So now that he's right here, he takes sweet pleasure in beating the shit out of him with his ride armor. But luckily, Big Bro Zero saves him, and for whatever reason, he's missing his green ball titty thingies. Afterward, he tells X that he may be garbage now, but it's okay. He has a potential to become stronger. He just needs a training arc. So while he goes to gather intel on Sigma's fortress, he instructs X to face the Maverick Commander's 8 lieutenants. And since the way I presented the bosses last time felt kinda lazy, I decided to step it up a notch.
Introducing Chill Penguin, Flame Mammoth, Storm Eagle, Armored Armadillo, Boomerang Kawanger, Spark Mandrill, Launch Octopus, and Sting Chameleon.
So the game doesn't really go into the origins of a lot of these characters, but this book right here, hope you can see it, the Maverick Hunter's Field Guide, does. In fact, it gives more details on a lot of the characters in the series, so I'm going to be using it abundantly in this video, just letting you know. It reveals that most of the recruited members didn't actually go Maverick because of the virus. Chill Penguin joined because he was bored of his duty guarding the South Pole Station. Flame Mammoth joined because this gave him the perfect excuse to go on a violent rampage. Like, chill, bro. The analytical Boomerang Kwanger decided that going Maverick was the most logical and interesting choice. Spark Mandrill joined because he didn't know any better. Launch Octopus always hated the humans he was tasked with protecting, so joining Sigma side gave him the chance to show off his underwater combat skills. And Sting Chameleon got beaten by Sigma, so he joined the army eager to prove his strength. The only former hunters who didn't get giddy over the thought of wreaking havoc were Armored Armadillo and Storm Eagle. Armored Armadillo joined out of loyalty to Sigma. That's it. And Storm Eagle actually tried to stop Sigma, but failed, so he joined against his will. This adds a whole new layer to the Maverick thing because now we know that there are some Reploids who seem to genuinely want this. Either that or Kane's lack of preparation really fucked them up. But X follows orders and takes down Sigma's lieutenants, and like classic Mega Man, he's able to copy their abilities. On his journey, he also finds different capsules left by Dr. Light meant to grant him armor upgrades and power-ups. This is a recurring feature in the series. In the boot upgrade capsule, the Doctor left a message for X stating that he built him with free will so he could choose his own path. He hoped that the world would allow him to choose a peaceful one, but the plot said no. So he hid these capsules in preparation to help turn X into the champion the world would need. This is depressing when you think about it. Like, Light built classic Mega Man with that conscience of justice circuitry, so whether he wanted him to or not, Mega Man was gonna act once shit popped off. Now we have X, a creation who actually has a choice, but he's gotta fight anyway. So after X defeats the lieutenants, collects the boots, buster, helmet, and armor upgrades, and learns the freaking Hadoken, Zero hits him up and tells him he found Sigma's hideout. They rendezvous there to infiltrate the place. It's wild when you think about the fact that these guys have been fighting a whole army by themselves. Now they're about to infiltrate Sigma's base with no backup. Low-key reminds me of Solid Snake and Raiden from Metal Gear Solid. Raiden? One of the two, I forgot how to pronounce. Jack the Ripper, y'all know who I mean. So they proceed with the raid, but Vile shows up to thwart their plans again. At first, Zero tells X that he's got it, but not soon after, the Maverick manages to trap him. X then goes in for his rematch, but he ends up getting trapped himself. For a moment, it looks like Vile might actually win, but Zero won't have it. He's like, fuck it! Breaks out of his trap and self-destructs to destroy the Maverick's mount. X is now free, but at what cost? Senpai is dead and the bad guys are still kicking, but our boy won't let his death be for nothing. With newfound resolve, he challenges Vile once again, and this time, the Maverick takes the L. X goes to talk to what's left of Zero afterward, and the Red Hunter leaves the mission up to him, saying that he is stronger than he thought. With that, the lone B-class hunter continues the raid. He takes on the Sigma Gauntlet, which includes rematches against the Maverick bosses and a battle against Sigma's dog, Velgarder. Then, he's challenged by his former commander, and after a tough battle, the Maverick leader falls. Afterward, X watches as Sigma's base collapses. He wonders why violence had to be used to save the day. Couldn't they find a way to end this peacefully? Regardless, he knows that this war is far from over, and he'll probably have to fight many more Mavericks before he gets his answers. Now, this is the part where I would move to X2, but hear me out. Back in 2005, Mega Man X1 ended up getting a remake on the PSP called Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. This was supposed to be the start of a reboot that would reimagine the first 6 games in the series, but due to poor sales, the project got scrapped. However, I'm not gonna hold you. When it comes to the upgraded story, they kinda cooked. I was originally going to quickly review the few differences between X1 and Maverick Hunter X, but I'm sorry, that's not good enough. There's too much to say, so I'm giving it its own mini section. However, if you rather continue with the main timeline, you can skip to this timestamp. Unless you're watching the premiere, in that case, strap in. So Maverick Hunter X has this OVA named The Day of Sigma that gives us a pretty in-depth look at what led to the Maverick Wars. Let's rewind all the way back to when Zero and X officially joined the Hunters. In this timeline, the epicenter of the Maverick issue was Abel City. This is most likely a reference to the biblical story of Abel and Cain. In the book of Genesis, Abel and his older brother Cain both made offerings to God, but only Abel's offering was accepted. This led to Cain killing his brother out of jealousy. In this case, since Dr. Cain is the creator of the Reploids, he's kinda indirectly the reason why Abel City will fall. Anyway, X and Zero are pretty close, but many of the other hunters don't really fuck with X like that because he's too hesitant on the battlefield. However, Sigma finds this human side of him interesting. At this point, he's already slowly going Maverick, and he believes that the power of X's emotions can aid in their evolution. He visits Vile in prison and tries to recruit him, but Vile hates X even more in this timeline. So when he hears that the Hunter is at the center of the Commander's plan, Vile decides that he's not going to side with anyone. He's just going to wreck shit and beat up X. That's it. No ambitious goal, nothing. For Vile, it's simply fuck X and anything he's involved with. Eventually, Zero and X track down the culprit behind the Maverick attacks plaguing the city, Sigma. So they tag team him, but fail. Zero gets put down so easily that it makes me question if they even fought in this timeline, and X doesn't really do any better. With both of them down, Sigma launches missiles at Able fucking City, devastating the place and almost killing Dr. Kane. This is gonna sound crazy. Not saying that there is anything right about this, but this is how you start an anti-human rebellion. Like, I don't know. This really made me think about how Sigma started the Maverick Wars in the original timeline. That shit was weak, bro. You recruit a bunch of hunters and attack the city? Okay. This Sigma had the balls to commit to the cause and do the unthinkable. Imagine if this is how they started the original X1 back in 1993. First time players would have lost their fucking minds. But after Sigma's act of genocide, X receives the #1 enemy of any villain when they're on their high horse, a flashback. He recounts the moment that Light sealed him in his capsule. Here the scientist tells him that his name, X, is a variable meant to represent his limitless potential. But he's too dangerous for the world right now and blah blah blah. Y'all know the rest. This vision pushes him to tap into his hidden power and hit his former commander with the Shining Finger, leaving Sigma's face scarred. Unfortunately, he's knocked out soon after. Sigma then leaves to stand on a rooftop and bask in the destruction he created, thus starting the actual game. For the most part, things go similarly to X1. X now has a navigator giving him information from Hunter HQ. During the first Vile boss fight, the Maverick once again makes it clear how much he does not mess with him.
Rebellion? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here to cause trouble for you. I hate you.
Which reminds me, the characters are fully voiced in this game, and they actually sound pretty good. Lucas Gilbertson does a decent job at making Zero sound like the badass he's meant to be, and Roger Rhodes, in my opinion, is a definitive Vile voice. Anyway, X loses to Vile, fights Sigma's lieutenant, gets stronger, and then Zero self-destructs. But listen to how annoyed he is at having to save X again.
Zero, hang in there, buddy!
X, I'm always telling you to be more careful. But now look at me.
Homie is sick of his shit. Afterward, he confronts Velgarder and then Sigma. And I gotta give it to Mark Gartha, the voice of X. He really killed it here. The emotion in X's voice is perfect.
I'll finish this right here, right now! I will defeat you, Sigma!
Of course, X defeats the Maverick commander, then the game ends with him driving on a cycle, while Light talks about his reasoning for creating him in the background. And from what he says, it looks like Light's plan for X was similar to Sigma. The Doctor also wanted X's conscience to aid in the evolution of Reploids, but more in a positive way and less in a destroy all humans way. Outside of the main story, the game also has a non-canon Vile mode, for those who need a little more hate in their lives. In it, you play through the story as Vile instead of X, and honestly, I'm a little surprised by how in-depth it is. I thought it was just gonna be a reskin of X's story, but nah, homie has his own cutscenes and dialogue with the bosses. As for his main goal, Day of Sigma already hinted at it, but actually, you know what? I'll just let Vile tell you himself.
You've been drawn into Sigma's rebellion as well? Rebellion? I couldn't care less. I just hate you, that's all.
I mean, yeah, he wants to prove to Sigma that he's a robot that can change the world, but it's mostly fuck X. So he proceeds to fight the Hunter as well as all the Maverick bosses. And what's hilarious is that most of the Mavericks are like, bro, what are you doing here? And in response, Vile says some violent shit like, I'll take down anyone who gets in my way. Bro, I know you hate X, but calm down, damn. This whole rampage leads to him getting jumped by the Hunter duo. He wins at first, but gets too busy talking all that hot shit, giving Zero the chance to grab onto his leg. Then our boy X charges his buster and blasts his ass. Afterwards, Sigma comes up to him like, dude, what was the goal here? What was the plan? And he's like, I'ma be real, I don't know. So Sigma calls for his broken body to be picked up. But tell me how this all ends with him saying he doesn't care about the world. By defeating X, he validated his existence. Bro, I wish the Maverick Hunter's field guide went more into who created these Reploids and when, because I gotta know what went into Val's creation. I know he had a cognitive issue or whatever, but this amount of hate is obscene. But that's about it for Maverick Hunter X. So the big question is it canon or nah? Well, I originally wrote this part with a confident no, since it was meant to start a reboot that never happened. But of all things, the Maverick Hunter's field guide fucked me up. It adds lore from Maverick Hunter X, even though the field image they show for these characters are their Mega Man X1 sprites. So honestly, it depends on how you want to go about it. I see the game overall as not canon, but the origins depicted in Day of Sigma can be mixed in with the original origin story without too much contrast. They both lead to the beginning of the Maverick Wars anyway, and that's what matters. However, we have spent way too much time here. Folks, I'm gonna need you to rewind and forget everything you learned about Maverick Hunter X. For the people who skipped, welcome back. I hope you got some snacks, because it's time to get into Mega Man X2. It's been a few months since the events of X1. Maverick activity has died down. As the only competent Reploid left in the force, X leads the new generation of Maverick Hunters, who are at a mere fraction of their past strength. They eventually hear word of Sigma followers planning a huge comeback. Kane traces them back to an underground factory, so X and his unit raid the place. And to show just how useless our boys' team is, look at how this hunter got bodied in the opening sequence of the intro stage of X2. They didn't even get to the real fight yet. Homie's less competent than a minion from League of Legends. So it's up to X to raid the factory alone. But once he's done, a whole new Maverick uprising occurs, with 8 Special A-Class Mavericks leading the charge.
Wire Sponge, Flame Stag, Bubble Crab, Wheel Gator, Overdrive Ostrich, Crystal Snail, Morph Moth, and Magna Centipede.
Going down the list, Wire Sponge was actually built for the Maverick army, which is a huge problem. These guys are just replenishing their ranks at this point. Meanwhile, the hunters just have X. Luckily, Wire Sponge is a defect that makes him childish. Flamestag was once a member of the 17th Elite Unit, but defected with Koanger during the first Maverick uprising. However, he didn't actually do anything because he was too busy trying to cause the most catastrophic volcano eruption that would block the sun with ash and lead to another ice age. This dude is fucking crazy. Bubble Crab was also a hunter, but defected for the money. Wheel Gator was honestly bad from jump. He got let go from the Maverick Hunters for violently attacking a comrade. Overdrive Ostrich used to be a part of the Hunter 7th Airborne unit, but an accident caused him to lose his wings. He was still fast as fuck though, and Sigma also thought he was fast as fuck. So when he invited Overdrive Ostrich to join the cause, he happily accepted, thankful for the recognition. Crystal Snail is a complete enigma. Morph Moth is of unknown origin too, but his main job is to revive Mavericks for their army and build new ones. And last is Magna Centipede, who honestly had it rough. He was a member of the 0th Shinobi unit, and when the first Maverick uprising happened, he refused to defect. But the Mavericks couldn't have that. He got kidnapped and brainwashed into a Maverick devoid of emotion. Now, ironically, his main job in this uprising is to try and spread the Sigma virus around the globe through the central computer. So X goes after the 8 rampaging Mavericks, but on his quest, he discovers the trio who seems to be the true leaders of this uprising: Surges, Agile, and Violent. And fun fact, the designs of these guys were actually inspired by the trio who are going to be the original antagonists of this series. At some point, Inafune combined them into the one Sigma. They call themselves the X-Hunters, and once they peep how much of a problem X is, they hit him up to let him know that they have Zero's parts, and are planning to rebuild him to work for them. X will have to defeat them if he wants his friend back. Now, funny thing about this plot point, with it being a big part of X2, you'd think the team always planned for Zero to make his epic return in this game. But nope. According to the official Complete Works, they brought him back because it would suck if he stayed dead. One of the designers, Yoshihisa Suda, mentioned how Inafune just kinda came in one day and said, "Don't you think it'd be a shame if Zero stayed dead?" So they decided to bring him back in parts. Although it was never confirmed, this kinda looks like the plot of X2 was made to bring Zero back to the series. But that's just me. Also, one last tangent. It's possible, emphasis on possible, that Surges is a reincarnated Wily. The Maverick Hunter's field guide states that his genius has been compared to that of the scientist. Along with that, the whole Revive Zero plan was his idea, he's the only one out of the X-Hunters who wasn't built for combat, and in the Japanese version of X2, His final words expressed disappointment in being defeated by one of Light's creations again. According to the official Complete Works, when asked about this, Inafune said that he never gave a clear answer, because he wanted to leave it up to the player's imagination. But hey, he didn't deny it, so I feel like it could be true. Anyway, X proceeds to body all the Mavericks, and the X-Hunters. He collects all the pieces of Zero and returns them to Dr. Kane. Then they find the location of the X-Hunters' hideout. He raids the place and ends up going against the X-Hunters again. But even after defeating them, his job isn't done yet. X hears Sigma calling him for one last showdown. He survived their last skirmish by living on through the Sigma virus. Now he has a new body and is ready to run it back. With no other choice, X accepts the challenge and goes to confront the Maverick leader. But when they meet, one of two things happens. If X didn't collect the Zero part, then Sigma summons the revived Reploid as a Maverick and says some wild shit like,
"Hey, Mega Bitch X, my friend over here has a bone to pick with you. I hear you let him die and he's not too happy about that."
Then you gotta fight him to snap him out of his frenzy. However, if X did collect the parts, then Sigma summons a copy of Zero and says the same disrespectful shit. But the real Zero, revived by Kane, comes in and destroys the clone. And he has shoulder pads now. Then Sigma's like,
"Wait, Zero, I know your secret. You should be working with me."
Which shows that he knows Wily built Zero. But the Red Hunter deadass retorts with,
"Maybe so, but I still don't like you."
Either way, Sigma dips afterward. Zero goes to take care of the central computer cause, don't forget, the Mavericks were trying to use it to spread the Sigma virus, and X confronts Sigma, who seems to have upgraded himself with Wolverine claws? Aight, so hear me out. X2 was released in 1994, right? And X-Men Children of Atom was another game developed by Capcom that also came out in 1994. Just 8 days before X2, in fact. Meaning these games were most likely developed at the same time. So I think this X-Men game has something to do with the change, especially because from what I remember, he doesn't get these Wolverine claws ever again. But I could be wrong, so let me know what y'all think in the comments. So after yet another epic clash, X defeats the Maverick commander, and then beats his virus form. As he falls, he states that this isn't the end. All these defeats will only make him stronger, which will bring the blue Reploid closer to his doom. After that, X and Zero stare out into the distance, as X thinks about the peaceful world that Light dreamt about. Will humans and robots ever be able to live in peace? And though things are chill now, how long will this calm last? We'll find that out, and more, right after this commercial break.
Mega Man X, Honest Gaming History.
Hey you! Yeah, you. A little Reploid told me you need more drip in your life. Well, look no further than right here on the don'tyoverse.com. Here you'll find all my merch, from the Phoenix Wright inspired graphic tees to the DBZ inspired Mastodon collection. But if that isn't your thing, we've also got accessories like desk mats and teacups. Along with that, the don'tyoverse.com is where I post my exclusive extra content. For as little as $3 a month, you can join the guild and gain access to my uncensored manhwa reactions, special solo leveling re-reactions, my whole stream archive, and much more. And with your support, whether it be through this or purchasing some merch, I'll be able to continue working on bigger and better videos like this. So check it out. Link is in the description. Alright, so before we get into the next section, I just wanted to address some mistakes I made in the last video. A good amount of you brought them up in a very kind and respectful manner, and I appreciate that. So I wanted to acknowledge them. First off, I did a disservice to Wily. I neglected to mention how he was almost always thrown into Light Shadow while they were growing as scientists. He made strides in robotics just as great as his rival, but he was never acknowledged as much. Hence why his hate for him burned like 1,000 suns. Also, in the video, I use a lot of pages from the Mega Man comic because the visuals were dope. However, the comic is a retelling of the game's events, so they aren't canon. For Oil Man and Time Man, I said their model numbers were DLN 9 and DLN 10, however that was based on early promo material for the game. From what I can tell, they were only given model numbers in the comics. Oil Man was DLN B and Time Man was DLN A. Shadow Man was not built by Wily and Light. He was actually an alien. And on that robot note, Wily didn't build a good amount of the Wily numbers. Some of them he straight up stole. And lastly, Mega Man Battle and Chase actually takes place after Mega Man 8 because of the inclusion of Duo. I also saw something about Napalm Man being the true winner of the racing tournament, but I couldn't find that in the Robot Masters field guide. With that, let's get back to X's depressing life.
Mega Man X, Honest Gaming History.
To kick off this chapter, we begin with the first spin-off game in this spin-off series, Mega Man Xtreme. This was a short series on the Game Boy Color, and unlike Rockman World, it was actually developed by Capcom. Also, the sole artist for this game, Haruki Suetsugu, killed it with these designs. Like, look at this cover! Look at how dope it looks! In fact, all the art for this game looks sick as hell. Lore-wise, it's been some time since the last Maverick uprising. X now has some support in leading the hunters with Zero by his side again, but shit gets out of hand once more when someone hacks into the mother computer of Maverick Hunter HQ. All the data is overwritten, which throws the world into chaos. With the help of a Reploid named Midi, X enters cyberspace to find the culprit. And I don't know how true this is, but I can see how this idea might have led to the cyber world we see in Mega Man Battle Network. Like the Rockman World series, X must face revived bosses to proceed. However, here, the reasoning is a lot cooler. Since he's fighting in cyberspace, he's fighting old Maverick data. On his journey, he runs into one of the culprits, Zane, a member of the Shadow Hunters. He eventually beats him along with the 4 revived Maverick bosses, then confronts Sigma, cause of course he's the mastermind behind all this. After defeating him, X finds the hacker responsible for messing with the mother computer, a Maverick named Techno. X shoots his terminal, which kills the guy, but unbeknownst to him, Midi and Techno are twins, and I guess for them that means they share the same CPU. So killing Techno kills Midi. On top of that, Techno wasn't even bad. Sigma made him do all this. So after Midi encourages X to keep pushing forward, the Hunter avenges him by taking Sigma down again. But I guess X and the squad didn't learn from their lesson, cause they get hacked again. This time it's by Gimel, the other half of the Shadow Hunters. So X must once again enter cyberspace. After fighting 4 more revived Mavericks and the remaining Shadow Hunter, X defeats Sigma once and for all. And the dude shows that he's already sick of losing to him, saying,
Why do you always win?
Sigma, this is your 3rd loss. Until you start racking up as many L's as Wily, I don't want to hear shit. So peace temporarily returns to the world, until a Reploid scientist named Dr. Doppler is like, wait a minute, if this Sigma virus is the problem, why don't we just make a cure? That's what the humans do. So he does just that, and actually manages to cure a bunch of Mavericks. Then to house this new community, he creates a Doppeltown, a utopia free from violence. Things stay calm for a couple of months, but then Mavericks start rioting again, taking us into X3. But get this, all the Maverick Hunter's data points to Dr. Doppler as the mastermind behind everything, so X and Zero head out to question him. However, it looks like the Doctor assumed this was gonna happen, cause he attacks the Hunter base before the duo can even get to him. So they return, whoop some ass, but find out that their fellow Hunter, Mac, is a traitor. He traps X, leaving it up to Zero to once again save his life. Which reminds me, this was the first game that allowed you to play as Zero. After saving their home, Zero returns to HQ to help with repairs, while X heads to Doppeltown. There, 8 powerful Mavericks await his arrival.
Blast Hornet, Blizzard Buffalo, Tunnel Rhino, Gravity Beetle, Volt Catfish, Neon Tiger, Toxic Seahorse, and Crush Crawfish.
Aight, so Blast Hornet actually used to work for Zero. Before all this, Zero's presence was requested at Doppeltown, but he went in instead. In doing so, he ended up getting infected by the Sigma virus. Hate to see it. Blizzard Buffalo used to be chill, but then the Sigma virus came in and he started attacking innocents. Tunnel Rhino used to be a miner, but then he got invited to Doppeltown and, you guessed it, he went Maverick. Gravity Beetle used to be a part of the Hunters, but went Maverick out of revenge for Boomerang Kwanger. That's cool, I think that's the first Maverick boss connection in between games so far. Volt Catfish used to work as a backup generator for cities during times of disaster, but then that damn Sigma virus made him go crazy too. Neon Tiger used to protect the wildlife in his home from poachers, but Sigma virus, Toxic Seahorse, is another enigma, but he was tasked with poisoning drinking water for humans, which is fucked up. And finally, poor Crush Crawfish had a flaw in his system that made it hard for him to tell friend from foe. So bitch-ass Doppler used this to his advantage to get him on his side. Along with these bosses, Dr. Doppler also sends his Nightmare Police and the revived Vile Mark II. The Nightmare Police is made up of 2 Mavericks named Bit and Bite. They were built using the specifications of the most advanced Reploids in the world. So, on paper, they should be hella strong. The Maverick Hunter's field guide even says that Bite's strength could be compared to Sigma's. Regardless, the Hunter duo takes out the Maverick bosses, the Nightmare Police, and Vile. And hold up, I've been racking my brain about this for the longest. Is it me, or does Bit look like Metabee from Metabots? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, Using the memory chips of the defeated Mavericks, Dr. Kane pinpoints the location of Doppler's lab. With that, the two hunters commence yet another gauntlet, which includes a rematch with Vile and a battle against a fuse Bit and Bite. They turn into this godlike Reploid named God Car Machine Oinari. Oh, and Vile still got that deep hate for X. When X finishes him off, he tells the guy that he will haunt him till the day he dies. Vile, fucking relax. Then X finally reaches and defeats Doppler, but it's revealed that Sigma was behind everything. He corrupted the Doctor using his virus form. That vaccine, it was just a placebo. And to add to the list of horrible shit Sigma made him do, the Doctor reveals that he was forced to make the Tyrant a new battle body as well. So X rushes to fight the Maverick leader and wins, even with this new body. And homie is so salty, bro. He's like,
What? I still can't beat you? Even with this magnificent battle body?
but once he's down to his virus form, he's like, fuck it, and tries to possess X. But his plan fails in one of two ways. One involves Doppler sacrificing himself to destroy Sigma with the vaccine. The other ending involves Zero coming in to save X instead. He somehow infused Doppler's vaccine in his Z-Saber and slashes Sigma with it. Either way, Sigma is destroyed by Doppler's vaccine. That's what matters. Then, as X and Zero stare at the remains of the fallen Doctor's lab, we get the usual,
X ponders about the meaning of this war. Why must they fight? Will they ever find peace?
but then the scene ends with them saying that X's destiny has already been sealed. To save humanity, he must destroy Zero.
Excuse me?
Bro, imagine being a kid, getting all hyped that you finally beat this game, but then you see this wild-ass message at the end. And then instead of giving us a little more context, they're just like,
Only time will tell when this clash will happen.
like, what? At least hint at it more throughout the game before you drop a bomb like that. Anyway, with the day saved, I guess, let's move to the next game in this timeline. Mega Man Xtreme 2. Reploids all over the world are getting their data wiped, leaving them as lifeless shells. They dubbed this phenomenon erasure. Then one day, the readings of all the Reploids on Lagoo's island vanish, just like that. They call this dark as fuck event the Erasure Incident. In response, the hunters send X and Zero to investigate. And though this isn't the first game where Zero is fully playable, he does have his own mode here. They're also aided by a new character named Iris. She's the product of a failed experiment by Repliforce scientists. But that's as far as I'll go in terms of her backstory because the Repliforce doesn't get introduced till X4. After defeating Skullhead, the guardian of the island, they're confronted by a Reploid named Gareth. He states that he is a soul eraser who eliminates the souls of Mavericks, but Zero's like,
That's bullshit. Tell us what you really do.
and tell me how this guy is like,
It takes real guts to ask me a question like that. Interesting. Let's play a little game. If you can take out the 8 guardians of this island, then you can fight me.
So the hunters split up the task, and each take on 4 guardians, who are just revived bosses from previous games. In the process, Iris finds out that this erasure phenomenon is caused by Reploids getting their DNA souls taken. Gareth and whoever he's working for are stealing them to make themselves stronger. In fact, the 8 guardians were revived using the souls of other Reploids. That's kinda sorta really fucked up. Once the guardians are down, the mastermind behind this whole operation appears, Burkana. She was once involved with Reploid research and development, and according to the Maverick Hunter's field guide, she's been rumored to have created Gareth. But now she's a Maverick who has an odd interest in X. She thinks he's cute, especially when angry. Weird. Also, thinking about it now, this interest might be why she chose to steal DNA souls. Since X is able to copy abilities, maybe she tried emulating that. Either way, the Maverick Witch challenges the Hunter duo to one final showdown in her base. They accept, and once again split up. Zero goes after Gareth, while X goes after Burkana. Once they defeat the two, the comatose Reploids regain their souls, and things go back to normal. Nah, I'm just kidding. You already know Sigma has got to show up for the once. In the Extreme Mode bonus ending, it's revealed that Burkana was working for the Maverick Tyrant this whole time. However, he thought she went too far, which I kinda get. Stealing the souls of possible soldiers for the Maverick army doesn't make much sense. But then again, we already know that Sigma has people building him soldiers, so what does it even matter? Regardless, the Maverick Hunters defeat the guy, thus putting an end to the Extreme series, and this chapter of the timeline. So next up is X4. This wasn't only the first game in the series to give Zero his own mode, but also the first to have animated and voice cutscenes. And I'd love to praise the performances, but I'm not gonna hold you. Shit is just as ass as the Mega Man 8 English dub. But I can't hate it, cause it gave us this gem right here.
Ah! No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
This scene makes this whole dub worth it. Also, this was the first in the series that only launched on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation, not the Super Nintendo. The change in platforms made them upgrade the style of the art, and I love it. It reminds me of the drastic change from Mega Man 7 to Mega Man 8. Plot-wise, a new Maverick hunting force has been formed, and they call themselves the Reploids. For some time, they work with the Maverick hunters to keep the world safe. This leads to Zero forming a close bond with the girl from Xtreme 2, Iris, and her brother, Colonel. As I said before, Iris is part of a failed Reploids experiment. However, Colonel was a part of that experiment too. The organization tried building a Reploid with a strong fighting spirit and pacifistic heart, but it didn't work out. So they instead created two separate Reploids to embody each ideal. Iris had the pacifistic heart, while Colonel the fighting spirit. With the Maverick Hunters and Reploids both making a difference, things stayed chill for a bit. But everything changes when the floating city of Sky Lagoon gets attacked. Maverick sabotaged the generator, and though the hunters try their best to solve the situation, they fail. The floating city ends up falling on the surface, killing thousands. The hunters run into Colonel during the fallout, and though they don't outright accuse the Reploids for causing this, they question Colonel as if they're responsible. They even ask them to lower their weapons and come back to HQ for questioning. But Colonel is like, bro, I only came here to save my sister. The Reploids hasn't done shit. What are you even talking about? But once the hunters mention that they'll have to treat them as Maverick, Colonel snaps. He tells them to consider them Maverick if that's what they wish, then dips. And I'm not gonna hold you, I feel Colonel here. Like, I mean, if you accuse me and my people for shit we didn't do, I'd be pissed too. So in response, the Reploids makes a commendable move. Its leader, a big-ass Reploid named General, announces that he wants to build a Reploid-only nation in space, where they can live free from prosecution. He's not trying to start beef with anyone, he just wants a place where he and his fam can relax. Oh, and I know I already came at the voices, but General's voice is so weird, like it doesn't match him at all.
Brave soldiers of Reploids, we have all been wrongfully judged as Mavericks by the humans.
I don't know who was in charge of casting, but why? What could have been the reasoning for this? Anyway, the hunters see all this as a coup, so they move out to stop the Reploids, beginning the Great Reploids War. And as usual, 8 Mavericks, some Reploids, some not, stand in their way.
Frost Walrus, Web Spider, Split Mushroom, Magma Dragoon, Jet Stingray, Cyber Peacock, Storm Owl, and Slash Beast.
Before all this, Frost Walrus was already a violent individual, which made him a target for the Maverick Hunters. This aggressive nature made him jump at the opportunity of joining the Reploids. Web Spider was a Maverick Hunter who ended up joining the Reploids as their guerrilla unit's commander. Split Mushroom was revived by Sigma. Jet Stingray is just like Armored Armadillo. He got recruited to the Reploids and his loyalty to the cause made him join the war. Cyber Peacock was once an AI meant to protect important computer systems, but he was reprogrammed by Sigma. Storm Owl is also a member of Reploids, but he's been holding a grudge against the Hunters ever since the defeat of his old friend Storm Eagle. Slash Beast joined the Reploids to test his strength. And last but not least, we have Magma Dragoon. He was once a Maverick Hunter, but he betrayed them. He was actually the one who sabotaged Sky Lagoon and started this whole mess. His reasoning? He wanted the chance to face X and Zero without holding back. Yup, homie defected and then joined the Reploids for the smoke. But when you think about his inspiration, it actually makes sense. According to the Maverick Hunter's field guide, Magma Dragoon is a practitioner of the Ansatsuken, Akuma style from Street Fighter. And if you didn't already know, Akuma lives for the hands. However, the reference goes even deeper than that. One of Akuma's greatest feats in Street Fighter was destroying an island with one blow. Though it wasn't done in the same fashion, Dragoon also caused an island to get destroyed. I have no idea if this was done on purpose, but if it was, that's pretty cool. Anyway, Zero and X engaged with the Mavericks. Zero was aided by Iris, while X is aided by a new recruit named Double. As they do their thing, the Reploids continues constructing the satellite they plan to migrate to space with. However, it looks like this new home also doubles as a big-ass space laser. The game refers to it as their final weapon. This part confused me because General never gave any reason to make us think he needed to build some crazy violent weapon. I thought this was supposed to be a chill, peaceful move, but I guess not? If any of you guys can give me clarity on this in the comments, it would be much appreciated. Maybe I missed something. But after finishing off the Mavericks, Zero ends up having one final showdown against Colonel. They've been beefing since the Hunters accused the Repliforce of going Maverick. Their clash ends with Zero as the victor, but he ain't too happy about this. Not only did he not want to kill his old friend, but now he has to explain to his sister how he died. Regardless, the Reploid falls, asking Zero to let Iris know that he died as a proud Repliforce soldier. Afterward, the Hunter duo chases after the rest of Repliforce who dipped to space. As they fight through the satellite, X is stopped by Double, who reveals himself to be a spy. Sigma was manipulating everything behind the shadows to get the Hunters and Repliforce at odds. He sent Double to keep an eye on X, but even with the element of surprise on his side, the Yellow Maverick is still no match for our blue hero. Meanwhile, Zero confronts Iris, and unfortunately for him, she opts for the Avenge My Brother route. This leads to Zero killing her, which leads to this.
What am I fighting for?
Man, I will never get tired of that. Now X and Zero can apprehend the General. When they get to him, X asks why this had to lead to violence, and the Repliforce leader responds with, "Bro, you're the ones who called us Maverick, the fuck did you expect us to do?" And X is kinda left standing there like, damn, you right. After beating him, Sigma shows himself, only to get taken out soon after. But instead of his usual saltiness, the Maverick leader is filled with pride, because the final weapon is preparing to fire at Earth and nothing can stop it. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I guess, General is still alive, and sacrifices himself to prevent the end of the world. With the day saved, barely, X and Zero return home. In X's ending, you can tell this whole situation shook him up. He worries about going Maverick and tells Zero that if he does, he needs to take him out. Similarly, Zero's ending sees him distraught too. Throughout the story, he was hit with flashbacks of his past, specifically about his creation and his fight with Sigma. He returns home thinking about Iris, and asks if all of them turned out to be Mavericks after all. That's fucking haunting, fam. So now we have both Zero and X worrying if they are Mavericks, or will end up turning into Mavericks eventually. And we know that they're destined to fight. That's a pretty depressing note to end this game on. Regardless, we move on to Mega Man X5. Fun fact, Inafune had little to do with this title. According to the official Complete Works, he told the team to finish out the series with this one. In fact, the first Mega Man Zero game was being developed alongside this one, so the original plan was that this would lead into that series. But we now know that didn't end up happening. So if this game feels like the end to you, that's why. Anyway, the story takes place several months after the Great Repliforce War. A new Reploid named Cygnus now leads the Maverick Hunters. The Maverick Hunters field guy says that his predecessor stepped down, due to guilt over the casualties of the Repliforce War. Now, I didn't see anything clearly stating that X gave up his role as leader ever since taking the spot in X2, so this might mean that he gave Cygnus the position. But the guide is usually pretty good with mentioning an important character if they're involved with something. And X isn't mentioned here, so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that at some point, some random NPC started acting as the Hunter Commander. The field guide also mentions that Cygnus' CPU is extremely precise, and one of the most complex out of all Reploids. In exchange for this buff, his combat stats are ass though. Along with his change to the Maverick Hunter's hierarchy, repairs have been ongoing for the space colonies damaged during the Great Repliforce War. The last one that needs to be fixed is Eurasia. But one day, a Maverick bounty hunter hired by Sigma named Dynamo commandeers the place and infects it with the Sigma virus. Meanwhile, Sigma pulls up to Earth for seemingly no reason. After X and Zero take care of him, his explosion causes the Sigma virus to spread across the globe. Reploids and mechanoloids everywhere start malfunctioning, while humans begin getting sick. Yet nobody's safe this time. So the hunters regroup and assess their situation. There's a global pandemic, and thanks to Dynamo, Eurasia's gravity system got fucked. So now it's free falling down to Earth. If it hits, everybody gon' die. So Aelia, another new Maverick Hunter, suggests they use Enigma, an ancient laser beam of mass destruction. With it, they can destroy the colony before impact. However, they'll need X and Zero to collect 4 parts to make it work, and getting them won't be easy, as 4 powerful Mavericks are guarding them.
Crescent Grizzly, Volt Kraken, Shining Firefly, and Tidal Whale.
So Crescent Grizzly used to be an illegal weapons dealer. Crazy, I know. He also knows that he will eventually succumb to the Sigma virus, so he chooses to fight X and Zero of his own free will before that happens. Oh, and that scar on his face was actually given to him by Zero. Volt Kraken used to be friends with Launch Octopus, but ever since the Maverick's death, he's held a grudge against X and Zero. Shining Firefly was a Reploid scientist who was distrusting of the Hunters, but very interested in X and Zero. Due to the virus taking over his systems, he asked the duo to put him out of his misery once they confront him. And last up, Tidal Whale was the Oceanographic Museum Chief and Maritime Security Force Captain. When the Hunter duo beats him, he asked to be laid to rest in the sea he loves so much. Also, in the English version of this game, each Maverick boss got a different name inspired by a Guns N' Roses band member. So Crescent Grizzly was Grizzly Slash, Volt Kraken was Squid Adler, Shining Firefly was Izzy Glow, and Tidal Whale was Duff McWhalen. Once the Maverick bosses are down, the Hunters use the gathered parts to fire Enigma, but it only destroys a portion of Eurasia. So they go with Plan B, crash a space shuttle into the landmass. But guess what? This shuttle requires 4 parts to run too, and these parts are being guarded by another 4 Maverick bosses.
Spiral Pegasus, aka the Skyver. Spike Rose Red, aka Axel the Red. Dark Necrobat, aka Dark Dizzy. And Burn Dino Rex, aka Matrex.
Going down the list, Spiral Pegasus used to be a part of Repliforce, and asked to be taken down in one final duel after the Sigma virus outbreak. Spike Rose Red was once a nature control unit, but the virus mutated him into what you see here. Dark Necrobat was built by Sigma 3 years ago, but he ran away from his master. And Burn Dino Rex was also a part of Repliforce, but homie also has an illegal weapons problem. After taking down all these guys and collecting the shuttle parts, they proceed with Plan B. Zero volunteers to fly the shuttle, and he manages to destroy the falling colony. However, debris from the impact still falls to Earth. A few hours later, Zero was found safe and sound in his crashed shuttle, but something is off. The virus from the colony and Sigma virus somehow fused and caused the formation of a small cyberspace pocket dimension. Stranger yet, the readings of this new combined virus are similar to Zero's. Because of this, Alia calls it the Zero virus. X heads to the crash site looking for his friend, but when he finds him, things don't go the way he hoped. He tells him that they should go back to HQ so he can get repaired. Staying around all this virus is too dangerous. But Zero refuses, believing that sticking around can help him find more clues. So X pulls a Naruto and is like, "Listen man, I know now is probably a bad time to fight since we're on a mission and all, but I'll bring you back by any means necessary." X! Chill, bro. Ain't you all about the peace and shit? What happened? Zero refuses again, and thus, the prophecy is fulfilled. The two Hunters clash, but it ends in a draw. While they're both down, Sigma pulls up talking all that hot shit, ready to finally end X. But Zero defends him and scares the commander away. With that, the Hunters reunite for one last hunt. Once they get to Sigma, the guy reveals everything. He's been receiving help from an old man, a man who is very interested in Zero, and thinks of him as his son. Though he doesn't outright say it, it's pretty obvious this old man is Wily. Under the doctor's instructions, Sigma spread the Sigma virus all over the planet, and set up the Eurasia colony crash to try and increase its power. The hope was that it would turn Zero back into his true self, the tool for world domination that his creator wanted him to be. And though it failed, all this still raises a huge concern. If Sigma was instructed by Wily, that means they were somehow conversing. So, did Wily find a way to transfer his essence into the Maverick virus? I'm not 100% sure if he did, but let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, Zero's basically like, "Yeah, you may be right about all that, but it's still fuck Sigma till I die!" Then together with X, they beat him, but the salty-ass Maverick blows himself up, severely damaging the Red Hunter. X is distraught over his state, but Sigma, somehow still kicking, uses this as an opportunity to nail both of them. But Zero, also somehow still kicking, blasts right back and destroys the Maverick. This leads to 2 different endings. In X's ending, he's found by a hologram of Light, who somehow repairs him and sends him back to Hunter HQ? After that scene, we move 3 years into the future. X is now a Special A-class Hunter, who fights with his old friend Z-Saber. A Hunter comments on how his eyes have a new sharpness that is reminiscent of Zero. This makes me think about Aaron Hansen / Egoraptor's Sequelitis video on Mega Man X. In it, he talks about how the blue Reploid was slowly growing to look and fight like Zero in the first game. I feel like that observation comes full circle here. Anyway, in Zero's ending, we watch as his life flashes before his eyes. Now that he's aware that he was the original holder of the Maverick virus, he lets himself die believing it'll help the world achieve peace. The final image he sees is a virus. So this is all depressing as shit, but there's a third ending that takes the cake. This one gets triggered earlier. Depending on how you go about the game, Zero can end up going Maverick once he crash lands on Earth. In this situation, X is forced to defeat his friend, and then face Sigma alone. Once he wins, Hologram Light finds him once again, but this time he's repaired with no memory of Zero. Without the tragedy of his best friend's death dragging him down, he sets his sights on a new goal, building a utopia for everyone that he wants to call Elysium. In Greek mythology, this place is pretty much seen as the afterlife for heroes. But more specifically, in Homer's writings, he describes it as a land of perfect happiness at the end of the earth. So yay! X is finally gonna create his utopia free of violence, but at the cost of forgetting his best friend. That's fucked up. However, none of that matters because the X series continued even though Inafune didn't want it to. According to the official complete works, the next game in the series, X6, just kinda fell into his lap. He said that the series was moving in a direction that was out of his control, and going forward, he wanted to be careful with how he managed it. Oh, if only you could see into the future, my friend. So this game takes place merely 3 weeks after the colony drop incident. Yeah, screw that whole 3-year time skip back in X's ending. The Hunters have put the majority of their efforts into rebuilding their home, but unfortunately, because of the pollution caused by Eurasia's debris, humans have moved underground. The good news is that the devastation put a lid on Maverick activity, so at least that's working out for them. Sadly, someone shows up to ruin the peace. Enter Gate, a prestigious Reploid researcher and former associate of Aelia. Back in the day, his interest in X and Zero led him to create Reploids that were ahead of their time. However, just like Light feared for X, the streets didn't understand what he was cooking, so he became a recluse. His colleagues grew jealous of his strides in robotics, so they sabotaged the Reploids he created so they'd be deemed as Mavericks. This obviously led to their destruction. So Gay ain't the happiest dude alive right now. One day he investigates the crash site where the Zero virus was born, and there, he finds a fragment containing Zero's DNA. He brings it back to his lab for research, then eventually, with the help of another Reploid researcher named Isaac, they decrypt Zero's code. Isaac is another character who may or may not be wily. According to the Maverick Hunter's field guide, his voice resembles the Doctor's. Unfortunately for Gate, studying this fragment makes him go Maverick, so he does the wildest shit. This guy mutates the Sigma virus into something new and horrific called Nightmare. As the name suggests, this virus forces its victim to see nightmarish visions that could either lead to their malfunction or them straight up deleting themselves. What the actual fuck, Gate? Because he's losing his frickin' mind, he sees this madness as liberating, but his plan isn't done yet. He creates a Reploid whose power surpasses that of X, High Max. After that, he creates a nightmare-fueled copy of Zero named Zero Nightmare. Then finally, he revives 8 of his creations that were falsely labeled as Mavericks.
Commander Yamark, Blizzard Wolfang, Blaze Heatnix, Metal Shark Player, Rainy Turtleoid, Ground Skarovich, Shield Sheldon, and Infinity Maginian.
So ready yourself, because almost all these backstories are pretty sad. Commander Yamark was originally tasked with protecting the forest, but one day he accidentally lit it on fire. Though he wasn't held accountable for it, he later died due to one of Gates' haters sabotaging his flight system. Blizzard Wolfang was the leader of an investigation team in the North Pole, but his squad got brutally slaughtered by Mavericks. He left that situation with survivor's guilt, then was later destroyed by Gates' former colleagues. When he was revived, he joined Gate because he felt it was the only way to make it up to his dead team. Blaze Heatnix was just a dick. Homie was too strong and would leave his teammates if he felt they were weak. Metal Shark Player was involved with the legal DNA resurrection, so he got destroyed. Rainy Turtleoid, poor Rainy Turtleoid, was created by Gate with max defense stats, but the other scientists didn't like that. They told Gate to nerf the dude, but Turtleoid felt bad for all the heat his creator was getting, so he deleted himself. On a happier note, his stance reminds me of Akuma's post-Raging Demon, so, you know, that's cool. Ground Skarovich was sent by Gate to investigate the places where X and Zero were sealed. However, Aelia was sent to intercept and kill him. Damn, girl! Didn't know you had it in you! Also, Gate apparently didn't give a shit about this Reploid dying. Homie was a savage even before the virus got him. Shield Sheldon was in charge of protecting people of importance, but then one day, someone went Maverick under his watch. He had to take him out, which led to Gates' haters falsely labeling him as Maverick. Shield Sheldon couldn't take the accusations, so he deleted himself too. And last, Infinity Maginian. He was made to test large weaponry, but then Gates' haters started meddling, and it led to his death. So now you know the depressing origins of the X6 bosses. You're welcome? With everything set, Gate initiates his full plan. He empowers Hymax and his other Mavericks with Nightmare, then gets Isoc to secretly carry out a bunch of Maverick attacks. Nightmare begins to spread, and just like that, the world is in crisis once more. X is sent to the scene to quell Maverick activity, but he runs into Hymax. The guy blames all this on Zero Nightmare, who he claims is the ghost of Zero. X is like, "The fuck are you even talking about, bro? From what I can tell, you're behind all this." So they fight, but X can barely do anything to this guy. In the end, Hymax leaves saying the hunters ain't nothing special. He doesn't need them to stop Zero Nightmare. Afterward, Isoc shows himself to the public and also blames all the Maverick attacks on Zero Nightmare. He adds that the spread of Nightmare is the Maverick's fault too. However, he's working with Hymax and Gate's 8 revived Mavericks, who he calls the Nightmare Investigators, to save everyone. He ends his speech by asking for the help of any Reploids willing to volunteer. X thinks this is bullshit, so after a talk with his fellow hunters, he deploys to look into the 8 areas of interest the investigators were sent to. Eventually, after beating Zero Nightmare, he runs into the real Zero. Since X5 didn't end the timeline like it was supposed to, Zero just kinda came back to life, completely repaired. Don't think too hard about it. Even the Maverick Hunters field guy says some cryptic shit like, there are rumors that supernatural causes may have been involved with Zero's recovery. So I honestly have no idea what to make of this. With the help of Zero, X manages to clear out the rest of the Nightmare investigators, while saving volunteer Reploids stranded on the battlefield. Dynamo also appears looking for Nightmare souls to strengthen himself, but he catches the work too. Later, Gate ends up contacting the Hunter base, and tells him that he's the villain of this game. He plans on using Nightmare to form his Reploid dream world, where he's in control. Ailey is like, bro, come on man, you're better than this. But Gate's like, nah, fuck you, Aelia! Disrespectfully! Y'all couldn't let me rock with my Reploids, yet X and Zero are so unique that they can't even be studied. How are they any less dangerous than my Reploids that I created? Nah, y'all got me fucked up. Aelia? Kick fucking rocks. X? Zero? See me with the fucking ones. So the Maverick duo pulls up to his lab, partakes in the gauntlet, beats Hymax once and for all, then takes out Gate. But then this dude says the wildest shit. Like, this dude Gate is one of the vilest Reploids we've ever seen in this timeline. You won't expect what he says next. This man reveals that on the side, he was rebuilding Sigma. Yeah, Sigma's back. Again. But Homeboy's like, fuck you, Gate. You didn't revive shit. I was never dead to begin with. Then he kills the guy. He was already down, and he was trying to help you. Sigma, the fuck? Either way, the hunters pursue him. But before they do, they notice Isoc's body. It's an empty husk that Aelia states is similar to the victims of the Erasure incident. Zero also swears that he hears the Maverick's voice pushing him forward before they proceed. So is it possible that was Wily, and he somehow found a way to transfer his digital soul to different Reploid bodies? The world may never know. After that, they fight and defeat Sigma. X brings Gate's body back to base for Aelia, and they all commit to rebuilding the Earth. However, like X5, this game also has alternate endings. If you don't find Zero, Aelia stands with X during the final cutscene. However, as they're talking, Zero is revealed to be watching from afar. He talks about how he's gonna lead the hunters to X for the time being, then dips saying he's gotta do something, which leads us to his ending. For the safety of the world, he decides to seal himself so the Maverick virus can be studied, and a cure can hopefully be found. The scientist he speaks to states that this process will take over 100 years to complete. And folks, this is where shit gets weird. As you already know, Inafune was already done with Mega Man X at this point. Since X5 didn't end the series, X6 was supposed to, hence Zero's ending. However, we still have X7, X8, and Command Mission. A common theory I've been seeing is that X6 causes a split in the timeline. In the main continuity, Zero's ending leads to the events that start Mega Man Zero. In the other, we have X7, X8, and Command Mission. However, another theory I've seen states that X7 and X8 are both in the main canon, while Command Mission isn't. Zero's X6 ending just happens further in the future than we thought. Now, I'm gonna be honest. Both sides have good points, but because I haven't seen anything from Capcom specifically stating that X7 and X8 aren't in the main continuity, I gotta go with the second theory. Of course, drop your counter arguments in the comments below, but without much further ado, let's get into the final chapter of the Mega Man X timeline. So X7 was the series' first try at going 3D, and folks did not like it. They tried mixing in 2D elements to stay true to their usual formula, but it didn't work out. In fact, this is the only Mega Man X title launch I remember because of how much people didn't like it. However, outside of the gameplay issues, I recall this guy being the main target of everyone's hate. This is Axel, the new kid on the block. Armed with 2 pistols, the power to copy the ability of robots, and even transform into some robots, he made his debut as the main character of this game. Back then, from the outside looking in, I didn't see what the big deal was. I thought his design looked way better than X. Actually, Inafune's only contribution to this game wasn't helping with his look. But now that I'm waist deep in this Mega Man shit, I get the anger. Since X was absent for a lot of the game, it felt like Capcom was trying to force replace him. And though the voice acting overall was bad in this game, Axel's voice specifically was annoying as hell.
Okay, I'll tell you everything, but later! Right now, I have to take care of that freak!
Plot-wise, X7 takes place a while after X6. X has full-on left the Hunters to find a more peaceful answer to the ongoing Maverick Wars. This weakened the Force, so a new coalition was started by a Reploid named Red to fill the void. This is where our boy Axel comes in. He's a prototype of the new generation of Reploids, but that's all we know about his past. He joined Red Alert and quickly proved himself as an asset with his copy ability. However, things start getting weird when Red begins taking suggestions from someone dubbed the Professor. This guy convinces the Vigilante Syndicate to use the DNA data that Axel collects from his ability to strengthen themselves. But this leads to them attacking innocent Reploids. Once Axel takes notice, he runs away from the organization. Red won't have that though. He sends agents to bring him back. Zero ends up running into him, and together they stop the pursuers. But since Axel was at the center of all this chaos, he's looking sus as hell right now. So Zero arrests him. Once they make it back to HQ, Axel immediately shows interest in becoming a hunter. But X is so against it. Yeah, even though he retired, I guess he still hangs around the Hunters. Then a transmission comes in from Red. Aware that Axel is with them, he challenges the Hunters to a game. He'll release some of the Mavericks they caught, and they'll compete to see who can take them down. If they win, then Axel is theirs. X thinks this is stupid, and I see his point. They're about to get into another senseless fight all because Axel doesn't want to go back to his team. But if they let Axel go, the team will only continue to steal DNA data, so they have no choice but to fight. Regardless, X stays back because he's sick and tired of the violence, leaving Axel and Zero to take on the Mavericks and 8 agents of Red Alert.
Flame Hynard, Vanishing Gungaroo, Tornado Tonian, Ride Borsky, Splash Warfly, Snipe Anteater, Soldier Stone Kong, and Wind Crowrang.
Flame Hynard was a Red Alert member who suffered from a malfunction that caused him constant pain. He thinks destroying the Maverick Hunters is the only way to fix himself. There's honestly nothing special about Vanishing Gungaroo, except for the fact that he likes fighting in his ride armor. Tornado Tonian is surprisingly aware of the Professor manipulating Red Alert, so he wants the Maverick Hunters to stop them. Ride Borsky is honestly just a hothead. Splash Warfly apparently hated Axel, so he was down for the violence. Snipe Anteater is an old Reploid who's good at mind games. Soldier Stone Kong just likes to fight, so that, along with his loyalty to Red, most likely made him jump at the chance to join this battle. And Wind Crowrang? Yeah, nothing interesting about him. He took control of a fleet of Air Force ships during this battle, if anyone cares about that. As Axel and Zero body Red Alert at their own game, X finally decides to join, cause doing nothing is way worse than going against his ideas. He still doesn't fuck with Axel though. Meanwhile, Red becomes aware that the Professor is actually Sigma. He used Red Alert to fuck with the Hunters and take advantage of Axel's ability. His main goal is to use the Reploid to copy X's data. Red isn't down for this, and tries to cut ties with the Maverick, but he's too late. Sigma already took control of his friends. Now he either complies, or his team will never be turned back to normal. With that, the Red Alert base location is suddenly transmitted to Hunter HQ, so the Hunter trio rolls out to end this once and for all. Once they confront and beat Red, he sets the place to blow, and tells them to get out while they can. Axel begs for him to come with them, but he chooses to fall with his ship. Next up on the deletion block is Sigma. The trio gives him the business too, with Axel dealing the finishing blow. And it's in a surprisingly cool way. When it looked like Sigma knocked him out, he returned as Red to trick him. Then at the last minute, he shot the Maverick in the face. Good shit, bro. Almost makes up for that stupid ass voice. With that, the hunters head home. Then we get one of 3 endings. In both X and Axel's ending, Axel tries shooting his shot with X again, begging him to accept him as a hunter. But X is all like, "No, Axel, fighting the obvious bad guys won't create peace. That's not what it takes to be a hunter." Then Axel retorts with, "But I was following your lead. And look, we saved the day, together." But X, in one of his most dumbass responses, is like, "Yeah, but what I was doing was wrong." X, just say you hate the kid, bro. I promise you, you are the only person in the Hunters who takes this pacifist thing so seriously. I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying it's kinda weird when you rejoin the Hunters to fight for good, but then you stop Axel from joining because he also wants to fight for good. In Zero's ending, he has this weird nightmare of X calling him Maverick and then shooting him with the charge shot. Maybe that fight he had with X affected him more than we thought. But with that, let's move on to the last game within this timeline, Mega Man X8. This title brought about a huge change to the series' art style. Tetsuya Yoshikawa, the game's artist, redesigned the Reploids to look a tad more futuristic. Their normal bulky limbs were slimmed down, and their armor was changed to look more polygonal. According to the official complete works, he thought about what everyone would look like as toys to help with this. And I mess with it heavy. I think everyone looks their best in this title. But where Yoshikawa really killed it was in the boss designs. He asked if he can go through with his own ideas and was approved. He said this felt like being a dog off a leash, and in the end, he couldn't decide which one was his favorite. He likes all of them equally. Inafune once again didn't add much here as he was afraid that he'd try to take over the whole project. And this game was also fully voiced, but it's good this time. Max Gartha, Lucas Gilbertson, and the GOAT Roger Rhodes fulfill the roles of X, Zero, and Val respectively. Since this came out before Maverick Hunter X, I'm assuming they got a feel for their characters in this game and then fully went off in that game. When it comes to the plot, this game takes place somewhere after the Red Alert incident. The Maverick Wars is still ongoing with no end in sight. So the humans initiate the Jacob Project to escape from the carnage. This project involves the construction of an orbital elevator named Jacob that'll take its passengers to the moon. The one leading all this is Lumine, the self-proclaimed leader of the new generation of Reploids. Yeah, whoever built Axel continued. Now we've already seen the advancement of Reploids throughout this timeline. So what really makes this new generation so special that we gotta add new generation at the beginning? Well, like Axel, these guys come with copy chips. But compared to Axel, these copy chips are busted. Axel normally has to use his copy shot to copy robots. However, these new gen Reploids come with the data of hundreds of Reploids pre-installed. This doesn't just allow them to copy others at will, but also makes them immune to viruses, since they can voluntarily change their DNA. Wait, I just thought about this. Someone is out there creating virus-immune robots that have the power to transform into a variety of old Reploids? Isn't that, I don't know, kinda sorta really fucking dangerous? What if one of them poses as Cygnus for the day and then gets mad at the Maverick Hunters to go Maverick? What then? Anyway, progress in the Jacob project is going smoothly, but guess who fucks everything up this time? Vile! Yeah, the #1 certified hater is back. He kidnaps Lumine and commandeers the elevator, talking about beginning a new world. Then another Maverick uprising occurs. 8 new-gen Reploids start tearing up the city. Alright, last one. Let's make this count.
Bamboo Pandemonium, Optic Sunflower, Dark Mantis, Gravity Antonian, Earthrock Trilobite, Gigabolt Man o' War, Avalanche Yeti, and Burn Rooster.
Okay, so the first one is a doozy. Bamboo Pandemonium went Maverick after determining that the evolution of destructive creations, such as Reploids, meant that the world wanted to be destroyed for a new beginning. Bro, what? History said destroy, so you also said destroy? Optic Sunflower used to be in charge of a Maverick Hunter training ground. Dark Mantis was in charge of an underground military facility and refused to believe that he went Maverick. We'll soon find out that he indeed went Maverick. Yeah, I know, it's weird that all these new gen Reploids went Maverick even though their whole thing is to not get viruses, but don't worry, it'll be explained soon. Gravity Antonian also dismissed the idea of being Maverick, saying it's the world that's evil. Earthrock Trilobite used to be in charge of mining. Gigabolt Man o' War used to provide energy to the city of Megalopolis. I've never heard of this place till this game, but apparently it's in Australia? Avalanche Yeti used to care about the world's environment, but now he's willing to destroy it just to please his master. And Burn Rooster used to be in charge of waste disposal. He also has my favorite design out of all the bosses. Pretty ironic when he's basically a glorified garbage man. With their mission set, Zero, X, and Axel, since I guess he and X are cool now, deploy. They also have the help of new hunter navigators Lair and Pallet. Lair helps with spotting enemy weaknesses, and she has a huge crush on Zero. So much so that she even knows his battle style. Pallet helps with guiding the hunters through each stage, and turning the medals they collect into various upgrade chips. She also fights like Axel. And this is probably a good time to mention that Aelia got hands too. She fights like X, with their very own Aelia Buster. Anyway, one by one the Maverick bosses catch the work. However, there is this odd conversation that X has with Aelia after the first boss fight. Take a listen.
X? What's the matter? The mission's only just begun.
That's right. It's begun again. How long must this war go on?
Just the thought of wiping the floor with those Mavericks makes my trigger finger itch.
Axel!
No, Aelia. Axel's right. There's no time to be wishy-washy here. Even as we speak, Mavericks are causing havoc.
X! What the fuck? You spent so much of the last game in your feelings talking about how violence isn't the answer. But now when Axel says some crazy shit like this, not only are you cool with it, but you agree? In what world does a pacifist hear, yeah, all these bad guys make my trigger finger itch, and think, yes, you're right, there's no time to be wishy-washy here. Granted, he is right, this is pretty serious, but this part still felt hella out of character for me. In my headcanon, Vile got our boy so shook that he started talking crazy. Either way, the Maverick bosses are defeated, and the team finds the dark truth behind all these new-gen Reploids going Maverick. Sigma's data is stored in their copy chips, so this is a lot worse than them just going Maverick. These guys are like clones of Sigma. He actually refers to them as his children. The Maverick commander then sends a transmission to Hunter HQ, and tells our heroes that he now has control of the Jacob project. He and his followers have grown tired of this basic-ass planet, so he plans on using the project to usher in his new world, and end the old one. So the Hunter trio rides up the elevator to space. After taking down a bunch of new-gen Reploids, and Vile once and for all, they finally run into Sigma. And Homie's design looks fire here. Definitely my favorite look of him in the series. And after defeating him, they find Lumine, but it's revealed that for the first time, Sigma isn't the mastermind behind everything. Lumine is the one who used Sigma. With his data, this new generation of Reploids can go Maverick at will. So he wants to build a new world with these guys, but excludes Zero, X, and Axel because in his eyes, they are nothing but tools for the humans of the old world. His speech gets to X, but Axel's resolve snaps him out of it. With that, the hunters engage Lumine in their final battle. And what's cool is that Lumine's final form is angelic to counter Sigma's demon form. It's a nice touch. Once defeated, Axel walks up to his body, but is attacked by some weird black tentacle thing. It knocks him out, but Zero and X quickly destroy what's left of Lumine afterward. On the way back home, X thinks about Lumine's words. If this is supposed to be evolution, then what are they doing? Should they be fighting this? Zero wonders if Sigma's defeat means this war is finally over. He also comforts X, letting him know that even if they are destined to become scrap, they must continue the fight against the Mavericks. Then in a post-credit scene, we see something shine within Axel's wound. It's definitely related to Lumine, but unfortunately we'll never find out what this is since there isn't an X9. We also find out that copy chip production stopped once Lumine's Maverick stunt became public, but production ended up resuming because society needs new-gen Reploids to help with space development. So y'all didn't learn anything from what just happened. Heard you. But folks, that brings an end to the very long Mega Man X timeline. As you guys know from that theory we talked about, the last scene is Zero sealing himself for the betterment of mankind and so the Maverick virus can be studied. But we're not done yet. There's still one more game we gotta cover. It's not canon to this timeline, but I mean, we've already covered pretty much all the X games, so might as well. With that, let's get into Mega Man X Command Mission. So you know how Mega Man X had some features inspired by RPGs? Well, that comes full circle with this game since it actually is an RPG. However, that's also the reason why Inafune had nothing to do with this title. He believed that Mega Man X belonged in the action genre. So when Capcom told him to make an RPG for the series, he said no and left it up to the others. The story takes place in 22XEX, the same time as the Mega Man Zero series. In the official complete works, Ryuji Higurashi, someone who worked on Command Mission, stated that this 22XCX should be seen as another possible future outside of the Zero series. So there's your proof for it not being canon. And big ups to Rockman HQ on Reddit for helping me out with all this info. If it wasn't for you, I'd still be banging my head on a wall, vigorously. Anyway, the discovery of a new mineral dubbed Force Metal has revolutionized Reploid engineering, so a government organization simply named the Federation established Giga City, an artificial island for mining and researching Force Metal. But you know we can't have nice things. So soon after its establishment, a rebellion breaks out, led by some dude named Epsilon. They banish all humans and demanded the Federation recognize Giga City as an independent Reploid state. Not willing to stand for this, Colonel Redops from the Far East Maverick Hunter HQ sends X, Zero, and a hunter named Shadow to calm shit down. However, once they get there, Shadow betrays them, and X and Zero are separated. Later, our blue hero wakes up in a place called New Hope, where he finds out about a resistance force fighting against the rebellion. Their leader, Chief R, is being kept hostage in Central Tower X, so X head out to save him. Eventually, he runs into the Reploid bounty hunter, Spider. He was originally sent to go after X, but he ends up switching sides and joining the resistance effort. Together they save Chief R, and from here, the real mission begins. X continues his work with the resistance to stop the rebellion. On the way, he recruits more like-minded Reploids to his cause, including old friends like Axel, who was looking into the origins of his creation before all this. Zero also ends up joining, even though he initially talked shit about X's squad. But, sadly, Spider ends up dying while trying to save everyone during a mission. On their quest, they also learn about an advanced version of Force Metal dubbed Supra Force Metal. The rebellion is using it to create a warhead capable of driving all Reploids in the Northern Hemisphere, Maverick. The Resistance can't have that. But when they get to where it's supposed to be, it's gone. Eventually they get to Epsilon, who reveals that he has Super Force Metal in his body. However, they still manage to beat him. Colonel Redops congratulates them on a job well done, and instructs them to go to Central Tower to get picked up. But when they get there, the Colonel betrays them and kills Chief R. Redops is actually a new generation Reploid who can also copy appearances and abilities. At some point, he switched places with the real Spider and spied on X from the inside, hence why his name is Spider backwards. He's also the one who stole the Supra Force Metal warhead. His big plan is to collect all the Supra Force Metal and fuse with it to make his copy ability omnipotent. He used the Rebellion and the Hunters to do everything for him. As a final touch, he sends a broadcast to the world accusing X and the team of going Maverick and conspiring with Epsilon and the Rebellion. Pissed, X and his friends travel to the Far East Hunter HQ for one final battle. Once they take him out, the last of Epsilon's soldiers, Therum, self-destructs with the Supra Force Metal, so no one can use it for evil ever again. Afterward, Epsilon's Maverick status is posthumously dropped, since Redops was behind everything. And with that, X's last adventure comes to a close, thus putting an end to the Mega Man X timeline. Folks, we made it. We made it through another Mega Man timeline video. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like, comment who else you would like to see me cover in Honest Gaming history. After this, I'm gonna take a mini break on the Mega Man mini-series. I say that because there is one Honest Gaming history I really want to do. It's a personal one for me, and I think the story is so crazy that you guys are gonna fuck with it heavy, bro. This is gonna be a really story-driven one, and I cannot wait for you to experience it with me. It should definitely be shorter because it's literally one game. So, but yeah, you know, if you want to see more from me, if you want to see more of these videos, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to stay notified of whenever I upload new content. The Guild, appreciate you guys. If you guys missed my little commercial break in the beginning, the Guild is where I post all of my extra content. Starting at $3 a month, you can gain access to a bunch of stuff like my uncensored manhwa reactions, my exclusive manhwa, manga, anime, comic reactions, all that stuff, merch discounts, merch previews, and all that good stuff. So if you're interested, join. I got the names of the people listed down below. Appreciate you guys for all your support. Thanks to you guys, I'm able to make videos like these. But yeah, check it out. With your support, I'll be able to make even better videos. I'll be able to make even more merch. If you don't want to support through the Guild, you can always get some merch for yourself. Check it out. It's all on the dojiverse.com, link in the description. But with all that being said, I am off this. So as usual, be easy, stay lit, stay healthy out there, you look good, and don't forget to smile today. Peace out, fam.